Hey guys, this is Mel, and I am back to talk about Legacies, episode 402, titled There's No I in Team, or whatever, which premiered Thursday, October 21st, 2021 on the CW. So sorry for the delay, as I'm recording just after midnight on the 24th. I had a meeting when the episode was first airing, and then I couldn't get back to my PVR access until roughly 2 hours ago. And then I watched it, and now I'm here to talk about it. So, huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first. Then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen. Take a moment to remind yourselves of those. Quick YouTube shoutouts to Golden Angel 15 and The Bang Mokiana for their comments on my previous video. I truly appreciate it. You'll probably get a reply shortly after this episode has been posted. So, yeah, there's that. Check that out for that. I'm really glad to get back into talking about Legacies. So without further ado, let's talk about what happened in this episode. So the quote, or the episode quote for the matter is, there's no I in team, or whatever, said by Hope to the Super Squad. It's really said early on in the episode too, which was kind of a surprise. So there's that. Timeline-wise, I believe it's the day after the events of 401. As you remember, the end of 401, they ended it with Hope waking up after getting a new inspired idea from Cleo, and this episode now opens up with what that idea was, and then her expressing it to the rest of the Super Squad. So that's why I think it's the day after. Episode reminder, only thing I can really think of is the fact that this was intended to be episode 318 before the shifting round of episodes. So I'm still keeping that in mind, because originally it was supposed to be 20 episodes, so that means we're kind of like this episode into more from the end of what was supposed to be season 3, so keeping that in mind as well. Feature creature of the episode is the fact that we have Malvar again still stuck in Landon's body, and then also a Dibbit, which apparently is a supernatural creature, a parasite really, who gives its host supernatural strength, and the only way to kill the Dibbit is to kill the host. We'll talk more about that later. So let's move on to storylines, or the breakdowns of the episode as I see it. 3 different ones I saw. First one, transfusion spell gone wrong. Second one being relationships gone wrong. And the third one, inspired in the darkness. So with the first storyline, this is where dealing with Cleo's inspiration, helping Hope find out a possibility of how to save Landon from Malvar, and that is with this transfusion spell. And in one of Cleo's memories, the spell allowed for the poison from one host to be transferred to another person who had essentially, or theoretically, who had immunity. So the Super Squad's idea was to use this spell to transfer Malvar out of Landon into someone immune to Malvar, or made from Malvar, in this case, Ryan Clark. So we have the Super Squad going off of the memory that Hope witnessed, and trying to figure out the spell's components, which led to them trying to redo the spell over and over again with the help of the simulation box as like their trial runs to see where they've gone wrong, since they really only got one chance at it, which I gotta say, it's pretty smart of them to go use the simulation box like that, so like kudos for them. Also, we see Wade and Jed coming in, playing a little bit more of a role in the Super Squad mission, as they're more geared with protection and also helping gather the necessary ingredients for it. So there's that. Meanwhile, Hope goes and recruits Ryan Clark, who just got discharged from the hospital, though I think that was from Hope's doing. After he talks with Malvar to get his own answers, and finding out that Malvar would just say anything because he really worries about what Hope would do next, kind of thing. Clark agrees to help Hope out of the name of revenge against his father. So there's that. After a run through the simulation box and saying that Hope can't do the spell without interfering in a way, we have Josie stepping in. So I don't know what the interference was, if maybe it was just Hope holding back from not wanting to hurt Landon's body, and that's why instead of getting the spell done, but Josie takes over. But when she does the spell, Malvar actually intervenes, and instead of transferring himself into Clark's body, he transfers one of his monsters into Ryan, which is the Dybbuk. So the Dybbuk takes control of Ryan, ends up going to the volunteer event in the town square, kidnaps Lizzy. I don't know why specific Lizzy, specifically Lizzy, or if it's just because it can sense another magical being in the town square. I don't know. But Hope then, Caleb tries to intervene, and then Hope saves them by using the transfusion spell from Ryan to take the Dibbit out of him. And then later, when she's saying goodbye to Ryan, she finds out that Alark was actually keeping things from her about Landon, which leads to her finding out that Caleb was doing the same thing too. Episode kind of ends with Alark saying, like, Malvar kind of had the upper hand on us. He had a hostage. We had to let him go. But now it's time I told you something about Landon, kind of a thing. So there's that. That was a lot in episode 1. Or not episode 1, in storyline number 1. Now, storyline number 2 kind of happens throughout the episode as well. But 2 parts, though. We have a movie in the town square, I should say. The second one being the merger reveal aftermath. So, which is doesn't really play a part until like the very end of the episode, but it's still relationship related, so I'm including it here. So we have, with moving the square, we find that Caleb is tasked to supervise the students that have to go and do community service by volunteering for this event. Lizzy is one of those students, and she takes the opportunity to use that to get close to Ethan and spend time with him to see if he checks off the boxes of her epic love list, kind of thing, of like who she's looking for in a perfect guy. MG, meanwhile, overhears her with his vampire hearing about this list and then goes to spy on her and her unofficial... Was it a date or was it an unofficial date? I don't know. Give me a moment. Oh, sorry. I needed water. So there's that. And then also, this gets interrupted when Dybbuk Ryan intervenes. Ethan tries to fight for Lizzy's protection, but he gets knocked out. Then Lizzy gets knocked out, and then she gets taken by the Dybbuk, and we already talked about what happened after that. So there's that. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Saltzman relationship spectrum, we have Josie and Finch. So throughout they were both part of the Super Squad meeting, as I mentioned. Finch was also volunteered to be another siphoning moment for Josie, but after all that, Josie kind of felt like something was off with Finch. Maybe like something happened. She took a little too much with the siphoning, so she went to go and find Finch, who took another shift at the grill because it was a bit of a stressful day, only to find out that it's a lot harder for Finch to wrap her head around the fact that her girlfriend has a 50-50 chance of surviving this magical merger death wish kind of a thing. And ultimately Finch breaks up with Josie. Or I got the impression that she breaks up with Josie because she doesn't want to, in this relationship, always be counting down the days before the person she is growing to love is going to die. And it makes sense totally, but in the moment she accidentally says the person she loves, and then she tells Josie like she didn't mean to say it purposefully, kind of a thing. So yeah, they end up breaking up. But yeah, we'll get to that later. So there's that. But the third storyline is inspired in the darkness, and that is within Malvar's realm. So this is where we see Cleo struggling with all the different tortures he puts on her, and that is like burning her village down and stuff like that. And she's about ready to break and give Malvar what he wants, only to be intercepted by the real Landon, who is now determined to get Cleo far away from Malvar's reach as he can, because if she was this close to breaking, then like he really needs to keep her preoccupied with the I can't do it kind of attitude. So they end up talking about hope, but this eventually gets Cleo inspired with the idea of how to kill the Tribrid. And once Landon finds that out, he tells Cleo, no, you got to get away from me, because if you tell me, then Malvar's going to know, because they still have their telepathic link to each other, or Malvar still has an access into Landon's memory, so they part ways. But Landon does tell Cleo, though, that maybe it's about time you inspire yourself instead of worrying about other people's inspirations. So there's that. Last scene of the episode, as I mentioned before, that Malvar took a hostage which forced Alar to set him free. That hostage was Ethan, so we see Malvar still having Ethan in his presence. And it looks like he attacks Ethan by like spreading his Malvar goo into Ethan. It kind of looked like he was transferring himself into him. Maybe he was taking over his body, like kind of getting like a minion out of Ethan. I don't know, but his eyes turned full on black, as if like he was demon possessed, you know. So there's that. Characters, let's go into that. Specifically, we got a lot kind of revealed when Lizzie's trying to find out if Ethan's the perfect guy for her. We find out that he took first year French, he doesn't play the guitar, his love language is words of affirmation, I believe it was, which matches with Lizzie's. And he was willing to step in to stand up for her, which she found that very valiant of him. So there's that. From Finch, we find out that she's never been overseas, let alone to Florida. She seemed very stoked at the idea of going to Italy when Josie invites her for their upcoming school break, kind of like Josie going over there to see Caroline. She wanted to bring Finch along because Josie has mentioned Finch to Caroline, kind of a thing. And Finch seems stoked by the idea. Also, like I mentioned before, we find out that she does pick up an extra shift at the Grill in times of stress and such. So there's that. Now with Cleo, wow, we find out that the day she learned about magic and witnessed it for herself was the day she learned about the transfusion spell, which is the memory that Hope witnessed. We also find out that Cleo does not know about Star Wars, and we find out that the more she loves a person, the more she inspires that person. So that's why, with her epic love with Leonardo da Vinci, he was greatly inspired to do all these great things, and that was because her love for him allowed her to inspire him as such, from my understanding. So there's that. So let's move on to tidbits very quickly. So we found out for a lark that the school still owes community service after what happened, quote unquote, last year. I'm assuming it's with what happened with the monster hunts attacking the high school, and that's what they're kind of making up for with this community service. So there's that. We have the movie night at the square as one of the volunteer events. We have them showing a screening of the original King Kong movie, and also having decorations for the vampire Nosferatu. I'm kind of actually surprised by that they were able to use both those names, but that's pretty cool. We also find out that Ryan Clark's medical bill was over $80,000, which is insane. And then we also find out that the school still has some leftover money from the leprechaun incident, which Hope ended up using to pay Clark part of Clark's medical bill. So there's that. Also, just as he was parting ways with Hope, he was fed Caleb's vampire blood. He wasn't given Hope's blood, which I thought was very interesting for that. So I guess because they didn't want to risk what would happen to Clark, which makes sense. Okay, so there's that. So most shocking moment of the episode. Let's move on to that. I would say the most shocking for me would have to be Malvar taking Ethan and then what looks like maybe transferring vessels or bodies himself from Landon to Ethan. I don't know. He did something to Ethan, but I'm kind of surprised that he took him with him. I'm even surprised that Ethan got into the crosshairs of Malvar, but that's another thing we'll talk about later. So there's that. Let's talk about favorite moments, though. I really like, I don't know what it is, but I really like the dynamic interaction we're getting with Hope and Ryan Clark. Maybe it's just me having a thing for the enemies to friends trope. The fact that Hope really wanted to keep her promise to Clark about, like, nothing happening to him, or she won't let anything happen to him, and wanting to save him. And then the fact that, like, he wanted to know, like, are we friends? Like, are we considered friends now, kind of a thing? And him still willing to open up to her and just and give her this information he didn't really need to give her. Plus, also when she asks him, like, how do you see the world if Malvar won, and him just explaining it in great detail, what kind of a loss it would be for the world if Malvar would win. That was such a hugely, like, that really did paint the picture of what it would mean for Malvar to win. Not only for that, but also basically what he was pretty much painting a picture of, like, Hope, if you don't become the Tribrid, this is what's going to happen to the world, and it's not just going to be the defeat of all monsters. It's going to be defeat of everything, all supernatural life, and then the human life, and it's just really painting, like, a downward spiral if Hope doesn't become the Tribrid. So it's like literally, it's either her future as a human or a mortal, not immortal, but her future as a person with a normal lifespan, a human lifespan, versus her turning into a Tribrid and possibly saving billions of lives from Malvar. So it's like him painting that picture was like, it really, I mean, we got major hints, but it's like when the mood that they were setting in that moment, and then her commenting that, like, yeah, I kind of figured, that's kind of what I've put together as well. It's just like, yeah, there's a reason why nature allowed for your birth to be its loophole. It's because they needed her to defeat this bottomless pit. And it's just like, wow. So it was also just a great added facet to their dynamic as well. The fact that he would actually give her the truth when she asked him for it, and her taking him for his word, kind of a thing. They have come a long way, I'll say. I can see why some people ship it. I sometimes ship it too, but it's like, I know that's not going to happen, but it's just like, it's fun to play around with, you know? Fan fiction, that's what it's for. All right, next favorite I will talk about is Hope's separate conversations between Josie and Alark. I'm pinning it together because otherwise I'm going to have too many favorites together, but the one specific conversation between Hope and Josie was the fact that Josie was pretty much telling her to have trust in me. We all care about Landon, and we all care about you. So it's like, she doesn't want Hope putting herself on the line because she means so much to all of them. And Josie's like, let me take over and let me do this for you, kind of a thing. And also, she called her best friend. So it's like, I know a lot of the Hosey shippers would probably deem that as a great moment. I definitely did as well, because literally you can ship Hope with anybody and it would be great and feasible in some way, shape, or form. But like, for them, I really like that moment of a heart to heart where it's like, you don't have to be, Josie pretty much telling Hope, like, you don't have to carry the weight of this on your shoulders. Let us help you, kind of a thing. And really honing in on the whole no I in team type of thing, which moves on to Hope's conversation with Alark, specifically about her questioning, like, why being the tribrid would be the easiest thing to save everybody. And Alark's like, we've already been over this. We know you don't want to be it. None of us want you to be the tribrid. So it's like, we'll find another way, kind of a thing. So it's really great to have him. I kind of thought that maybe he would have brought up his time when he was briefly a vampire and kind of sharing with her, like, the burden that came with that. But I really liked how that conversation really established that, like, this is a topic of conversation they've covered beforehand. Maybe more so once Malvar came into the picture, but I have a feeling like this is a conversation they might have had a few times over her stay at the school. So that was pretty cool there. And also just to have her get some insight from him, because this is the first time she has to sit on the sidelines, and Alark, as a human, always has to sit on the sidelines when it comes to magic and, like, other supernatural entities that have no human remedies to it. So it's like, kind of like, yeah, I've been there already, and then kind of taking advice from him. I thought that was pretty cool. So now we go to my next group of favorites, and that is pretty much MG and Lizzy venting to Caleb about their relationship troubles. Kudos for Caleb for listening to all this and not wanting to tell them what to do and just, like, being an open ear. So that's pretty cool. But okay, so let's deal with the Lizzy and Caleb portion of it. So I really like, so Lizzy is telling Caleb about, like, her quest to figure out if Ethan's her epic love or if he's the next best guy for her to kind of a date. So I really like that she's kind of pretty much, when she's ranting, you kind of think she's ranting to her sister or maybe to Hope, but then to find out it's Caleb. And then he's, like, just thinking, like, are you serious? And then he rants in, like, you're having this problem when my own crush is stuck in the darkness. So anyway, that's funny. But what I really liked, though, about that moment specifically was that Lizzy vents to Caleb about the fact that Ethan is checking off all these things off of her list, and yet she's wondering why she doesn't feel anything more towards him. I really appreciate that, because sometimes people always have this ideal of what their perfect match or perfect partner would be, and then on paper you come across this person, but then you don't feel any, like, chemistry with them when you're in person, kind of a thing, or you're not feeling that initial spark you think you're going to feel right off the bat. So I really appreciate that with Lizzy. She brought that up with Caleb at the beginning, and then it's when they talk at the end after she is saved from the Dybbuk, she brings up how it was through spending more time with Ethan and then his heroic act for her is what led her to develop more of an attraction towards him. So it wasn't like an instant attraction for her, but it was more of like her just a growing attraction as she got to know him better. So I really appreciate that. One, Lizzy was able to be that truthful with Caleb for it, just because not everybody you end up dating, you end up having that immediate attraction towards. So I really liked that was being brought up. Also, I really liked during that final exchange between them, Lizzy pretty much gave Caleb her thanks and her praise, saying that like Caleb was there to supervise and he was there to protect the students, and he did fulfill that right when Caleb thought that he failed Alaric's objective for him for the day was to keep the students safe and in line, kind of thing. So I did appreciate that Lizzy was kind of saying like, no, you did what you needed to do. You saved me from the Dybbuk kind of a thing. Even though Hope stepped in, she even said, no, but you saved me as well, kind of a thing, or you helped to save me. So I really appreciate that she actually took the moment to acknowledge Caleb's part in her rescue as well too, and his overall presence throughout the day as well too. So that was great. Now for the MG Caleb side of it, what I really appreciate is Caleb getting MG to open up about the fact about his feelings with Lizzy, about how like he thought that he was worried about how he always thought that they would drift apart from each other, have their relationships, and then eventually when their time was right, they would come together and have their relationship happen. So I really appreciate how Caleb got MG to open up about the fact that, like, well, now he's worried that, like, what if she finds her right time with someone else, and then her time with MG just never comes? Which was a great way to put it, because at the same time, it's like, well, now you just want MG to fight harder. And he seems like he was ready to fight to go and confess to her, but then the Dybbuk attacking kind of got in the way of that. So it was great to just see that range of a roller coaster when it came to the Mizzy relationship. Although this will they, won't they, I'm like, I need some resolution. You know, I need to find out, are they actually going to go that route, or are they not? Or is it really going to be a very slow burn between them? Or the missing ships kind of a thing. Sailing ships missing in the night kind of. So there's that. Now, another separate favorite I had was actually seeing the transfusion spell being done by other Super Squad members. Usually we see Hope, both Lizzy and Josie. It's always the three of them, obviously. And then if they add other people, then it's always going to be MG, and then it's Caleb. So this time it was really great to see Wade, Jed, and Finch playing their appropriate parts, with Josie being in the lead. So it was just really great to see everybody else pitching in their different ways. I'm hoping when we get bigger for spell escalations, we'll get more of the squad members doing more parts instead of just like substitution stuff. Like if that person's not here, then you're subbing in for them. I'd hope that we get everybody helping out together. But I really like that this one we got to see more of everybody else's skill set kind of tipping in. So that was great. Bonus favorite was just Landon's reaction when Cleo said she did not know about Star Wars. His face for that was just like, wait, what? That was just funny. So there's that. But let's move on to top 3 peeve moments. I only have the one peeve, and that was literally the fact that Josie left MG to watch over Ethan, and then he walks away. And what happens? He wakes up to Malvar pretending to be a victim and crying out for help after hearing the hero complex that Ethan has. So it's like, MG, if you had stayed by Ethan's side like you were supposed to and watch over him, you definitely could have stopped him from hearing the Malvar calling out as a victim. And then he would still be in a cell. So it's just like, why, MG? You had one job. You're supposed to stay by his side, and you did it. It's just like I get it. Yeah, you would think that he'd be knocked out for the rest of the night after what Josie had said about his condition. But at the same time, this is a human inside of a school that hosts a bunch of supernatural creatures, and your biggest enemy is literally in the gym. Why would you leave a human unsupervised in that situation, right? So it's just like, that was annoying. But let's move on to random questions. I have a few. First one. If Hope used that transfusion spell on Brian Clark to get rid of the Dybbuk from his body, then where did the Dybbuk go? Because didn't what you were taking out from one host did it not have to be transferred into another host? If that's the case, where did the Dibbit go? I mean, one part of me thinks Hope took the Dibbit into herself. But if that's not the case, then where did the Dibbit go? Right? Because no one else was on the other end of that lion's hair braid that she needed for the spell. That's first question. Second question. Why would Malvar leave Landon's body if being in that body is what protected him from the super squad from attacking him? This is in reference to the final scene where it showed Malvar forcing his goo into Ethan. The scene made it look like he was like possessing Ethan, like leaving Landon's body to possess Ethan. So that's where this question comes in. But based off of me seeing the promo, I don't think that's what the case is, since we do see Landon as Malvar still. But I'm just wondering, like, okay, if that's the case, then what did Malvar do with his goo on Landon? Or not on Landon, on Ethan, you know? Okay, so there's that. Another question. Landon said again in this episode that whatever he knows, Malvar knows. But have we had confirmation or clarification over whether or not the other way works as well? Meaning, if Malvar knows what Landon knows, then does Landon know what Malvar knows? I'm still waiting for that. I feel like that would be like that's the case, and it's just like that's why he's trapped even more in the darkness, kind of a thing. But yeah. And last question. Why weren't there more protections placed around Malvar's cage? Yes, we had the barrier spell from the previous scene. We have that weird black candle that's supposed to be a protection spell as well. But why wasn't there a spell on the actual gymnasium so that nobody could enter into the room to even talk to Malvar? Why was there no silencing spell on the actual room itself or on his cage so that no one could hear him shouting when no one is talking to him, kind of a thing? Like, why were there not any more magical protections placed instead of just a cage door, a magic candle, and maybe a border around the cell? I would have locked that room down like crazy, to the point where it would literally take you 15 minutes to disarm every single trap you've put against him, you know? So there's that question. But let's move on to predictions very quickly. Based off the promo for 403, it looks like we get a monster, a rock monster maybe, who is on fire, like, or at least has like lava veins or something. We see Hope going solo again after being lied to by the Super Squad. We see Malvar still possessing Landon, even saying to somebody, "Strike me down, and I only become stronger than you could possibly imagine." I ad-libbed that, but like roughly that. We see Dorian returning and with the line, "It's happening whether you're ready for it or not." While he's saying this line, we get shots of Lizzy, Finch, and Alaric all looking emotional. So I'm thinking it's something connected to the merge, or Josie's in like a fatal situation right now. Because, like, yeah, why would you show Finch if they just broke up, if it's not connected to Josie in any which way? So that's my predictions there from the promo. But based off the synopsis, though, it reads, Hope realizes she has a difficult choice to make, much to Alaric's disapproval. Caleb and MG come up with their own plan to help Hope, as Hope seeks help from Josie and Lizzy. Meanwhile, Alaric realizes he needs to relinquish control. Landon, Jed, and Ethan also star. I also forgot to mention that when Cleo got the inspired idea of how to kill the tribred, the vision showed an old tree bleeding. So I'm assuming it's the white oak tree again. So either you have to use the white oak and poison it somehow, or maybe you needed the white oak to kill Hope, like the actual kill before she would turn her into a tribrid. Maybe killing her with the white oak stake prevents that transition. But I forgot to mention that we did see Cleo's vision about how to kill the tribrid. It's just a tree that bleeds, but we don't know anything else specific from that vision. I'm assuming white oak tree. That created the original species to begin with. So there's that. Otherwise, that's pretty much it, guys. But they did announce also that on the episode airing on November 11th, which is episode 405, is going to show the return of Rebecca Michelson. I'm so excited for that. Also, I'm wondering, since this episode is meant to originally be the season 4 premiere, I'm wondering if Rebecca is brought back to deal with a tribird Hope. Right? I don't know. I'd be excited because, like, I'm still waiting for Hope to become a tribird. Yes, she doesn't want the burden of what it would be to be immortal, to be a vampire, and all that. But as Landon said in this episode, she would be the first of her kind, and I really want to see her explore more of that vampirism side, to explore her werewolf side, because really the show just really only focuses on Hope being a witch. But she is a witch and a werewolf, and when she becomes a tribird, you got to add vampirism to that too. So, like, I really want to see that happening. So I'm excited for that. But otherwise, guys, what do you guys think of this episode? What do you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about what you think will happen next. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all the good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I am behind. I really need to go and update. But I've been pretty hectic with my own pre-production in place. I got, what do I got? I got like less than 3 weeks left before I start shooting. Oh crap! When I think about that, that's scary. But yeah, so hopefully after that and things chill out, I can start reblogging and updating that Tumblr post. But meantime, WordPress link is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. It's a little more organized, a little more detailed, but still a work in progress as well. So that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. Sorry for the delay as well for the video, but I hope you come back next week to see what to say about the next episode. Until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you a great day, great week, wherever you are. Stay safe and have a great night. Bye for now.